The pond nearby Duran Burong border of Malaysia and Ban Prakop border of Thailand was once an important landmark of Buddhism settlement in this region. It was in 2225 BE during Ayutthaya period. This land had received dripping lymph from the dead body of the revered monk. His body was carried passing by this pond to Shanghai Temple as the destination. The path of his pilgrimage in the region bond the faith of people who now belong to two countries. Back to 2125 BE in Tambon Di Luang, Songkhla district of Songkhla province, at the worker's house belonged to the wealthy landlord named Pan. Mother Jan gave birth to a baby boy. She named him Bu, which is Thai word for crab, hinting the way of his crawling. Father Hu buried the baby's placenta under the base of liep tree nearby the house. The location of this tree has become a sacred sanctuary for all Buddhists. The most telling story is about the incident when Luang Thuat was a baby. It was a day when his mother put him in a crib suspended between two trees. There was a giant cobra coiled up around the crib. In all astonishment, the snake didn't harm the baby and departed. When the parents came to their baby, they found a small magical crystal ball. This crystal ball is now placed at Pakot Temple in Songkhla district of our province. At the age of 7, Luang Thuat was ordained to be a novice at Di Luang Temple. 5 years later, he went to study scriptures and disciplines at Siyang Temple at Tambon Bo Tru in Ranhot district of Songkhla. Later on, he moved to continue his studies at Sema Mueang Temple in Nakhon Si Thammarat, where he was ordained as a monk on the raft upon Tha Phaya Canal at the age of 20. The title given to him as เหยียบน้ำทะเลจืด meaning step on the sea water and make it fresh water, was named after his miraculous performance during the course of his voyage to Ayutthaya. The performance of desalination is the most telling miracle of Luang Thuat. The setting of this incident is in the area of Nui Nok Island in Khanom district of Nakhon Si Thammarat. When arrived to Ayutthaya, Luang Thuat resided at Rachanuwat Temple or Care Temple, which was located on the Isle of Ayutthaya city. Luang Thuat spent 6 years of ordination in Ayutthaya. He was well recognized in the kingdom of Ayutthaya after he could solve the puzzle of scriptures challenged by 7 Brahmin ambassadors from Sri Lanka as wicked plan to seize Ayutthaya. His amazing knowledge earned him the favor of the king. He was then appointed an abbot of Ratburana Temple, the royal temple, and later promoted to the rank of Supreme Patriarch of Siam with the title สมเด็จราชมุนีสามีรามคุนุปมาจารย์ Later on, he returned to his homeland and became an abbot of Pakot Temple. The final details of his story describe his disappearance and the prediction that he is the Bodhisattva or the Buddha to be. The story relates that Luang Thuat was visited in his quarters one day by a young novice carrying a magical flower that he had been given by a mysterious old man. This man has said that the monk who could identify the flower would be the future Buddha. Luang Thuat was able to identify the flower. Soon after, he and the novice were not seen again. The disappearance of Luang Thuat from Phakot Temple is a mystery for all. It inspires many Buddhists to trace for his whereabouts. Finally, the missing piece of his footsteps appears and meaningfully opens the doors for the people of two lands to reconnect with faith in Luang Thuat once again. As in another story, there was an old monk in Saiburi region. This monk was highly respected by Saiburi ruler and people of the region. The ruler named Praya Gamdam had high devotee on this monk that he donated a piece of land for him to build the temple. This temple is now known as Shanghai Temple. The people of Saiburi addressed this monk as Talanga, then call him Tan Shanghai after he moved to reside at Shanghai Temple. It is believed that this is the mysterious part of Luang Thuat's life after his disappearance from Phakot Temple. In the final year of his life, Luang Thuat was invited by one of the rulers in Saiburi region, now Perak State, to preside over the religious ceremony. On the way back, he was sick, so his disciples carried him on a palanquin back to Songkhla. The group arrived to a river bank and stopped there for 10 days, but finally he was mortally ill and died at the age of 100 years old on that river bank. The location he passed away was where Kanaring and Perak rivers are merged. Local people had named the place Samit Mati, which means place where the monk died. The legend mentioned about last words of Luang Thuat that his cremation to be held at Shanghai Temple in Pattani. He also commanded to place wooden column upon the ground wherever the lymph of his corpse dripping on, because these locations would become sacred places. Luang Thuat's body was carried by elephant. The procession to Shanghai Temple started with some of these disciples, but along the course more people participated in the group, increasingly from hundreds to thousands. They all together traveled around 50 days. Along this traverse route, there are many Buddhism places existing until present. This is Poti Jetiyaram Temple or Tung Kwai Temple, the only Buddhism temple in Saiburi region during that time. Luang Thuat used to be the abbot here. After the cremation at Shanghai Temple, some of his ash was brought back and kept in the stupa at this temple. At Ban Plakla, a wooden column sculptured in lotus shape is found under the simple shelter made by local people. There is a statue of Luang Thuat placed here. Only 600 meters away, the second column is located in the same village. With the same lotus design, wooden columns are then found in the area nearby Pikun Thararam Temple and under the pavilion of Dindang Temple. The procession to Shanghai Temple was a long journey with no water resources on the route. As a result, the carrier elephant was weakened and ill. Until then, the procession arrived to the pond, which is now next to Durian Barong border. All the elephants, including the corpse-carrying elephant, went into the pond. Here, all remaining lymph of Luang Thuat's body was thoroughly washed out. The group of procession was resting here for 12 days before heading to Shanghai Temple, passing through Ban Prakop, Sabayoi, and Kopo. Finally, the procession stopped and waited at Balu Kashawa Temple for 8 days in the preparation of cremation ceremony at Shanghai Temple. Right after the cremation, 5 of the elephants which carried Luang Thuat's body died peacefully, and only a young elephant remained. Days after days, the story of Luang Thuat became virtually a miraculous legend. From past to present, for almost 4 centuries, Luang Thuat is well respected by Buddhists in Thailand and Malaysia. It is a faith in the heart of people to remain forever. From the book of Pattani legend compiled by Prasi Burirat, there is a part saying, At that time, Praya Gamdam, Pattani ruler, wished to find a place to build a town for his sister, Jesiti. On an auspicious occasion, he made a witch and led the elephant priceless to the town, out roaming, and he himself led a troop to go after it. Many days passed, the elephant stopped at a forest, circled around it and cried out 3 times. Praya Gamdam took it as a good omen for the town to be built at that place, which is where Wat Shanghai is at present. However, his sister still was not very satisfied with the place, so he made another witch for the elephant to indicate a new place. After so many days, on one evening, while the troop took a rest, Jesiti went out for a walk and saw a white fawn running past. She wanted to have it and so persuaded her caretakers to circle around to capture it. The fawn ran around back and forth on a white sand beach on the seashore and disappeared. Jesiti was very pleased with the location, so she asked her brother to build a town for her. This town has become Tambon Kruse nowadays. After completely building the town, Praya Gamdam left proper number of his people with his sister, named the town Patani, and then went back. On the way back, he arrived at the place where the elephant had first indicated. He regretted not taking the land, so he stopped there to clear it and built a temple called Shanghai Temple, which he later gave to Thalanga Ongdam or Luang Thuat that we know of now to administer. When Luang Thuat was in Siberia, people called him Thalanga, but when he was at Wat Shanghai, they called him Tan Shanghai. He had to be responsible for both the temple in Siberia and Shanghai Temple. One day, while he was at the temple in Siberia, he told his followers that if he died, his body should be cremated at Shanghai Temple. While carrying his body there, a stop was made and spots on the ground were created by pus and lymph. A pole of hardwood had to be erected to mark them as they would become sacred in the time to come. Not long after, he died from old age at the riverbank in Siberia region. His followers did as he instructed. Part of his ashes was kept at Shanghai Temple and part was taken back to Siberia. Wat Shanghai was deserted since until 1937 when Phra Kru Manoon, the abbot of Phalanupap Temple and จ้าคณะตำบลทุ่งพลา assigned Phra Chuang to be the abbot of Shanghai Temple. Phra Chuang then gathered people to clear the land and build monks' dwellings, thatched roof sermon hall, and other constructions needed in the temple. He retreated from monkshood in 1941. After that, Phra Ajahn Tim Thammatharo took the position of the abbot. He restored Shanghai Temple to its glory by renovating the pagoda housing Luang Thuat's relics so that it became the center of faith, making the first lot of Luang Thuat amulets for those who revered him to take for respect. The amulets were believed to be very sacred and miraculous. พระอาจารย์ Tim used the donated money to build the ubosot and completely improve the temple area. During World War II, the Japanese soldiers used the Southern Railway line from Hat Yai to Sungai Golok to transport soldiers and luggage passing Shanghai Temple many times a day. พระอาจารย์ Tim Tamatharo was kind enough to provide food and resting place for those passers-by. This made the people feel better after the shock from war. Hence, he was revered by people from all over, even now. พระอาจารย์ Tim passed away in 1969. His time as an abbot there was 28 years. At present, there is a life-size wax image of his in Ajahn Tim Vihara at the temple. Later, the Department of Religion renamed Shanghai Temple Raj Burana Temple. At present, Shanghai Temple is still the center of faith of Thai Buddhists around this area. It is also meaningful historically and in terms of the relationship with Luang Thuat. Hence, it really can be called the Temple of the Land. Going back to the reign of Pramaha Thamaraja of Ayutthaya, a legend was told and has been told until nowadays. Legend has it that 430 years ago, a boy was born and became a very faithful Buddhist, and his story has been told until the present time. He has been known as Luang Thuat, and his story has been told in many legends with several names, some of which we have probably never heard of, such as Thalanka Ong Dam, พระสามีราโม and the name of his official title, สมเด็จเจ้าราชมุนีสามีรามาคุณูปมาจารย์ bestowed on him by สมเด็จพระมหาธรรมราชา for his impressive translation work of พระไตรปิฎก in the Golden Seed.Sometimes we may hear people call him by the name สมเด็จเจ้าพระโค However, the most familiar name of all is หลวงปู่ทวดเหยียบน้ำทะเลจืด which means the river monk whose step turned sea water to fresh water. This was a place where the phenomenon that illustrated his well-known magic power took place. The long thunder rumbles and lightning above a small hut in the middle of a rice field in Ban Son Jan, เมืองจะทิ้งพระ on the Friday night of the 5th lunar month of the year of the dragon, or 1582, was a miraculous phenomenon. It was as if to proclaim that in the small hut, a new life that was born came from a superbly excellent place to bring the highest auspicious event to Songkhla Lake Basin and the land at the tip of this Suvarnabhumi Peninsula in the future.At a structure where workers of Pan the millionaire lived in Tambon Di Luang, อำเภอสถิงพระ Songkhla province, Mrs. Chan gave birth to a boy named Pu, meaning a crab, the name given to him because he crawled like a crab. Mr. Hu, the father, buried the placenta of the boy under a liap tree not far from the place where he was born.Nowadays, the place is the location of a Buddhist monk lodging called สำนักสงฆ์ต้นเลียบ The legendary site where a reverend monk of Siam originated and became known as หลวงปู่ทวดเหยียบน้ำทะเลจืด which means the revered monk whose step turned sea water to fresh water.The Legend has it that Mr. Hu and Mrs. Chan were poor and owed Pan the millionaire some money, and so the couple came to live on Pan's land in order to work and repay him. 7 days after giving birth to the boy, Bu, Pan pressed a debt claim on her. She begged him to wait until she was recovered, but he did not agree to it. So Mrs. Chan had to take the newborn baby with her to work in Pan's rice field to pay the debt. When she arrived at the rice field, she put the baby on the ground and tied a piece of cloth to a mamao tree to make a cradle for the baby. She put her baby in the cloth cradle and began to harvest rice. When she came back to breastfeed the baby, her heart almost stopped breathing as she saw a large cobra coiled around the cradle. She screamed her heart out for help, but nobody dared to help. She found no way out and so started to pray to sacred things to protect her baby, and then tried to chase the snake away and not to hurt the baby. After a while, the great big snake slowly wound out its coil and slithered away. Mrs. Chan ran to her baby and examined him and found that there was foam of snake saliva on the baby's cheek, and was shocked, thinking that her baby must have been bitten by the snake. But when she wiped out the foam, she found no trace of snake fangs on the cheek, and she was relieved. However, she was surprised to see that in the foam of saliva there was a small glittering glass ball. Mrs. Chan carried the baby close to her breast and began to realize an auspicious sign, implying that her baby's life in the future would not be like just a common rice farmer's son. She wrapped the glass ball with a piece of cloth and carried the baby back to the hut. When Pan the millionaire knew about the glass ball, he wanted it, and so he traded his rice field and all the rice in the field for the glass ball. Not long after he had the glass ball in his possession, many misfortunes happened to him and his family. So he had to return the glass ball to the farmers. In contrast, life became better for Mr. Hu and Mrs. Chan's family. The place where the story took place is now situated Na Ple Mang Sabot in Tambon Chumpon, Ampher Sathingphra, Songkhla province, the place where you are now visiting. In this monk's abode area, there is a pavilion which houses images of Thuat Hu and Thuat Chan, paying respect to a great big cobra coiling around baby Bu's cradle. These images depicting the story are here so that visitors can pay respect to Luang Thuat, who had special magic power. This can be regarded as a way of learning closely about the history of his life. About 300 meters away from Na Ple Mang's abode is the site where Mr. Hu buried his baby's placenta, which is presently known as Samnak Somton Liep. There is a giant liep tree with a circumference of 21 meters, standing with its branches extending all around it, making a shade for visitors to the place, and the tree has been here for more than 400 years. It is so exciting and amazing that a story that happened over 400 years ago can become alive in our memory as we are here at the place where we can imagine the life of the revered Luang Thuat from his birth to the present time, when his reverence still exists in the heart of all people who have respect for the revered monk of the south, Luang Thuat เหยียบน้ำทะเลจืด, which means the revered monk whose step turned sea water to fresh water. Luang Thuat was a revered Buddhist monk with great virtue. Although Luang Thuat's story about the miracle of his stepping into the sea water and it became fresh water has long been narrated, the miraculous puzzle of his traceless disappearance from Pakot Temple after receiving the Montatip flower from a little novice has remained astonishing in the legend of Luang Thuat's biography. There was a spotlight floating towards the sky above Pakot Temple in the night Luang Thuat disappeared from the temple. It might have been the Dharma light that led him to further his pilgrimage for disseminating Buddhism to the people. After the phenomenon, there was an old monk seen in Siberia. The locals there called him Than Lanka Ong Dam, according to his description. Luang Thuat was a religious intellectual monk and reputable for his miracle. He had obtained much devotion throughout Siberia precinct, including Praya Gamdam or Black Sheik, the Siberia ruler. With great devotion, he had invited Luang Thuat to be the abbot at Shanghai Temple. As a consequence, he went on his pilgrimage back and forth from Pattani and Siberia. Presently, the two lands have been separated into two countries with Ban Prakop Customs House as a border connecting the two countries, Thailand and Malaysia. After crossing the border to Malaysia at Ban Durian Burong, Kedah State, we can see a big swarm in a short distance from the Malaysian border. The water here is like a mirror reflecting the past events of Luang Thuat's life, the revered monk of Ayutthaya. Luang Thuat made his pilgrimage in this area until his last minute. He passed away on the bank of Ganaring River, Tambon Kampong Sawa, Greek province, Perak State nowadays. The locals call this place Samimati, which means the place where the monk passed away. According to the legend, Luang Thuat's last words to his close followers were that after he had passed away, he wanted his body to be cremated at Shanghai Temple. Additionally, during the journey while resting, when his lymph dripped onto the ground at any place, a pole of hardwood had to be markedly plunged into the ground, as that place will become a sacred place in the time to come. The Buddhist great devotion to Luang Thuat resulted in a large procession of carrying his body from Samimati to Shanghai Temple. Miraculously, although time has long passed for hundreds of years, the poles of hardwood can still be found at many spots which have become sacred sites. At Ban Naka, Ampher Padang Terap, Kedah State, two hardwood poles were found nearby at only 600 meters apart. When we reach Ban Bang Chamak, Padang Terap District, Kedah State, we can see that the stupa was built to cover the hardwood pole. Presently, a large termite hill has also covered the stupa. The next spot that the hardwood pole was found is at Dindang Temple in Ban Thana Mera, Padang Terap District, Kedah State. The hardwood pole is in the pavilion of this temple. Presently, the hardwood pole is also covered with a large termite hill similar to Ban Bang Chamak and Ban Naka. From Dindang Temple, there is Thai Praditha Ram Temple, Ban Padang Sanai, Padang Terap District, Kedah State. The last resting stop of Luang Thuat's body in the Malaysian territory before reaching the swamp of Ban Durian Burong, the area connected with Ban Prakop Border Customs House, Natui District, Songkhla Province. When Luang Thuat's procession arrived at the swamp here, the elephants in the procession became sick due to the exhaustion of long traveling. The procession had to rest here for a couple days so that the elephants could recover. The elephant that carried Luang Thuat's body had rinsed out Luang Thuat's lymph in this swamp as well. After that, the procession moved on to Shanghai Temple, Kok Po District, Pattani Province. Along the way from Samimati, there are many temples reflecting traces of the glory of Buddhism in the past. It is believed that some temples are associated with Luang Thuat. Pothijetiyaram Temple or Thung Kwai Temple at Ban Kampong Jina, Ampher Pendang, Kedah State, is a temple where Luang Thuat's relics brought from Shanghai Temple after the cremation is kept in the stupa. According to Pothijetiyaram's history in parallel with that of Shanghai Temple, after the completion of Luang Thuat's cremation ceremony, the followers who accompanied the procession asked for a small share of Luang Thuat's relics to Siberia for the homage. Therefore, Pothijetiyaram Temple has been the spiritual and ceremonial center for the Thai Buddhists in Kedah State ever since. The faith and devotion to Luang Thuat has been rooted in the mind of the Buddhists in Thailand and Malaysia. At Samimati, where Luang Thuat passed away, the devout Buddhists had built a stupa in memorial to Luang Thuat. In the vicinity, there are also various Buddhist sites constructed in memorial to Luang Thuat's great merit and virtue. Prakop Customs House may have an impact on the economy and transportation between Thailand and Malaysia, but its genuine value is that once our revered Luang Thuat had made his pilgrimage on both lands until the last moment of his life. Additionally, the journey of faith of the Buddhist procession to send Luang Thuat to his eternity had passed through this Prakop Customs House.